Gamarjoba from a town you've never heard of, Chiatura. A once prominent Soviet town because in the 19th century they found a large deposit of manganese and iron ore. And that's when the Soviet Union decided to extract all the resources here. Not only did they extract manganese and iron here, but also quartz sand, marble, and they had several factories such as like tea and clothing factory as well. The Soviet authorities decided to create a workers' paradise here. They started building the city, the factories, and most importantly, they decided to build the cable cars in order to make the production more efficient. Since all the mines are on top of the mountains, they had to walk up about 30 minutes. But instead of walking, they started to construct these cable cars around the city. Soviet cable cars. Check this out. According to some of my research, they've constructed 17 cable lines, but I checked the map, it looks like there's 20 lines. But most likely the 17 is within the city lines. Well, this one is closed, but there are other ones that are supposed to be operating. Let's find it. In fact, this particular line, the cable that was pulling the cars snapped. However, there was a second cable that saved it from falling. And they were suspended for 12 hours because they didn't have the proper emergency services here. Therefore, they waited for the rescue to come from Tbilisi, which took 12 hours. Luckily, all the 12 passengers were saved. Let's go find a cable car that still operates. After the collapse of Soviet Union in 1991, the factories, the shafts, they closed down, and the civil war ravaged the country apart. This town became pretty devastated, but the cable cars continued to operate. In order to transport all the resources from here, they built the railways connecting this all the way to Tbilisi. And seems like the passenger station is closed down. As we can find all over Georgia, there's lots of abandoned stuff because the country couldn't continue to fund this towns or these factories or these railway stations. But this is what it's left of it. We are not here for these ruins. We are here in search of a working cable car. You can see the typical Soviet housing blocks over here. Not in the best condition. About 5 to 10 years ago, this town was in really bad shape. Luckily, they started to put some money into reconstruction and building new stuff, new restaurants, new cafes, hotels. For example, this one has the facade painted, newer windows installed. It looks a bit better than the other building we just passed by. Lots of industrial stuff still standing in ruins. You can see at the top a cable car station, but this one doesn't seem to operate, and there's a little car hanging next to it. Since all the extraction was taking place on top of the mountains, but the houses were built inside the canyon, they had to construct the cable cars because that was more efficient enough for the workers to get up to the factory and save energy. There's a cable car station right there, and no cars, nothing here, but we can check out the building itself. Wow, Look at these cables. This one most likely shut down in the 90s. Boom. That's where it would go. A 5-minute ride. Seems like there's not much this way. So let's go back into the city and find the ones that are left inside. What magazine? No more jobu. Вода есть у вас?
Вода?
Вода.
Да.
Сколько стоит? Маленькая. А в каком году закрылась станция?
Не работает.
Когда закрыли?
По-русски не знаю.
До СССР или после СССР? Закрыто.
Не знаю, Арвиц.
Хорошо. Мадлоба. Looks like we found another station. It seems like it. And check it out. At the top we have Uncle Joseph. The frieze of Uncle Joseph. And there's a Soviet symbol. The hammer and the sickle in the middle of it. This is probably something to do with the arts. Yeah, that's not a station. And next to the Soviet symbol, we have the Hollywood star. We are back in the city center. I was told that in 2016 majority of the cable cars were closed down, but only 2 were operating. And I'm trying to find these 2. You have a clock on top of a mountain. And that was another cable car that is completely destroyed. Nothing is left. Don't think there's a way to get up there. This is the line that was working not long ago. In one of the travel YouTube channels, a couple had taken that cable car that was around 2001. So let's see what's up. Here you go, the main line that used to work. Seems like it's under construction. And you see a mosaic from river pebbles of Stalin and Lenin together, which is a rarity. And this town has some history connected to Stalin as well, and some interesting parts, such as he was hiding in the factory mines here. They also robbed the train that was carrying millions of dollars at the time. And more of that history will be another episode dedicated to Stalin that is connected with Georgia. I wonder what type of cable cars they're going to install here, the French ones or reconstruct the Soviet. A fun fact about the city, not only did they have cable cars here, up till recently, there was also a trolley bus that would go to another city, which is a rarity because trolley buses work within the cities. So they had to pull the cables for electricity in order to reach that town. And the views, it would go through the mountain hills, the cliff sides. And it operated until 2006 and then was in such a bad condition. I can't believe it that they allowed it to work that long. But this is the consequences of the 90s in Georgia. This bridge leads to the main facility where the manganese was processed. And it's completely abandoned. At the top of it you see a cable car, and below it I think it was a safety net. But this factory was on the city level. The reason why they have a cable car at the top is because on the other side they had another facility there. So to get between the 2 mountain peaks, they built a cable car for this. As usual, there's half of the building is occupied by some people. Half of the building is abandoned. Looks like there's some still operation going on here, but you can see that this was the building. While I was driving to Chiatura, I saw a main factory on the other side of the mountains. So this one is abandoned, but they still have the process going on for the extraction of the resources. These mountains have manganese, marble, and whatever other stuff. After 30 years of independence, it seems like nobody speaks the Russian language here, besides the very old people. I guess it's good that the Georgian language is thriving, but it's important to know 2 languages, why not? And we are neighbors as well. I know not the best neighbors, but still. It seems like they constructed new lines here. The price in the old Soviet cable cars was 10 tetri, but where they had the mines, it was actually free, because the workers would reach them directly. Well, this is the only that we can write today. Unfortunately, what I saw on one of the YouTube videos, the couple 2 years ago was riding the old Soviet cable car. 2 of them, in fact, which I thought they still might be operating for some reason. Unfortunately, they closed it down about a year ago or so, and now they've actually built these cable cars, and I calculated there's 4 routes, and all from one city center. Supposedly some French company was responsible for the construction of this. The cable cars remind me of a ride somewhere up in the mountains in the United States, like Lake Tahoe or Colorado, because they're really fancy. But below it, while you're riding, you see all these houses, the Soviet built blocks. It's kind of a wild contrast if you think about it. The reason why it's so cheap, only 10 tetri, is because actually this is the local public transportation. People need to get up to their houses. It's not like they're going to move down the hill just because the factory is closed down. That actually looks like a sanatorium. And now it's occupied by other people. Now check this out. You can see all the places where the excavation is happening is on top of the mountain. There's an old cable car station and a Hollywood sign, chiatura. Well, it's unfortunate we couldn't ride one of the old Soviet cars, but maybe it's for the best, because the condition was absolutely terrible, and maybe there would be a point where it could have snapped and somebody could have died. But luckily that didn't happen, and now they've built these cable cars. Very safe and good for the city. Thanks for coming on this Soviet journey with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, even though things didn't go as planned, but at least we visited the city and now we know what it's all about. Subscribe if you want to see more journeys such as these. Until next episode, nomads.
Найти работу здесь очень трудно.
Вот это главное был, да?
Да, да.
Он работает
Старый,
сейчас?
Да, работает. Это старый построенный, а это здесь новый.